we can go ahead and dive in because we do have some special guests today. But just first off, we'll run through just some of the hot topics and highlights for you all. So in case you missed Derek's email, we are going to be doing Global 2022 in person. Whoop, whoop. I'm so excited for that. Hope you guys are too. I've definitely missed your faces and hugs and laughs and just all the good times. So it'll be really awesome to bring, especially the new chapter directors who that haven't gotten a chance to, connect in real life. Jen, you're on the call. I think there's some others who are brand new who haven't gotten to go to Global. So that'll be a blast. I'm going to share a link in the chat. And so our team is just trying to gauge, I know it's really far in advance, but we're just trying to gauge how many chapter directors are interested in attending. So then that way we can start, go about the planning of Global and the summit. Also, if there's any ideas of things that you would love to see, love to do, love to happen at the Director Summit, shoot us a message. Feel free to DM me, or if we even have some, time after today's call, we can run through that. But we will be doing things a little bit differently this year just because we are not planning on bringing, 12,000 people to Redwood City. It's definitely going to be a bit of a smaller conference, but really honing in on key topics, quality content, workshops, and then also really focusing on connecting one another since we've only been doing, virtual connecting for the past 2 years. So any ideas or things that you'd like to see, please do indeed send that our way. And then over the next month or two, we'll be rolling out more information about accommodation and pricing. So then that way you guys can kind of start planning out your own chapter budgets or what it's going to take to get you there. And then I'm going to go ahead and pass over the mic to Yasmin for a minute.
Thank you. Quick update on the director portal. We already mentioned it a few times during the previous office hours that we have the internal directory included. And as you all know, we tried throughout the years just to find a way where directors can directly find information about each other and just know what everyone's expertise is, what they need help with at. So it would be really great if everyone can just complete their profile. That way it will make for anyone easier to just get connected and find the information. We still don't have all the profiles completed, so it would be really great if you could upload your profile picture and then just fill in the information. It will take you only a few minutes to do that. And also over the summer, if you're not too busy attending parties and meeting directors, it would be great if you are not a certified chapter director yet, you can go ahead and just do the course. We had a few directors doing it already and the feedback was great. And they said that it took them only around 1 hour or 2 hours, depending on your reading speed. So it would be great to just have all our directors soon officially certified and everything complete on the director portal. So if you have any questions, feel free to ask. If you need help with starting the course or if there's anything unclear, just ping us on Slack and we're happy to help.
I think you're probably bigger than us.
Awesome. Thank you. And also just want to give a shout out to all of the chapter directors who participated in the startup referral program that just closed last week. We had 213 referral applications come in, and I don't think anyone's on the call, but just a special shout out to Arzish, Naimul, and Druville, who brought in the most startup referrals. Even though this referral competition is now over, you still can always refer startups into the membership program. We do have a special code that you can use for your referrals. I'm going to share the link in the chat, and this is the article that has all things startup membership related. There's case studies in there, there's templates in that article, and the startup program has really spent a lot of time creating this resource guide for you directors, making it easier to share about like the perks and benefits of being a part of the startup membership program. And as we continue to get more startups in the membership, we've just been seeing more and more successes, whether that be, startups getting introductions to VC and ending up getting funding. We've had others that have gotten just like great exposure through, pitching at our conference and all of that kind of good stuff. So please do take advantage of all of the offers that the startup membership has set forth as available for you as directors. All right, Yas, over to you.
Yeah, we already have shared it on our Slack channels, a great opportunity for all directors to connect on a one-on-one on meetings, and the program or the platform is called Meetball. So a former chapter director, I believe he was the chapter director of the Stockholm chapter. He initiated this this platform, and he would like to offer everyone the chance to get to know each other, to catch up, and Mets is going to share the link in the chat. If you are interested in joining and just getting connected with directors one-on-one for a short conversation, you can just go ahead and join the community group and book as many slots as you want, and then it will match you up. It will pair you up with the other directors that are also choosing the same slots, and you can have a quick video chat with them. Important is that you use your desktop or your laptop. I think it's not working well on mobile phones. So if you are interested, please go ahead and just sign up and get to know some of our directors better.
Awesome. And then we did announce this last month, but, one of our main missions, and it has stayed the same, even throughout the pandemic, is to continually bring, resources, education, connection to entrepreneurs within your community. And so we are aware that during the pandemic, there were several chapter directors that had to step down and were no longer able to keep their chapters active. That being said, we have now published the list of all the inactive chapters and are allowing you as a director to cross-promote on the chapter of your choice. So I'll share the list in the chat, but if you have a really great event with like a really cool speaker, or maybe the speaker is from, that city or within that region, go ahead and look through that list, identify the chapter, and then go ahead and email forward@startupgrind.com asking to cross-promote your event on that chapter. And then we'll go ahead and give you admin access so you can go ahead and cross-promote the event and send out. And then that way you're engaging that ecosystem, maybe building your list a little bit and getting access to more community members to attend your future events, but also just helping that neighboring chapter stay active. So if that's of interest, just click on that Airtable link and then email forward@startupgrind.com. And that is really it when it comes to announcements. I know that these summer months are a little bit slower. Everyone's on holiday, and now that Europe's opened up, everyone's probably enjoying the beautiful beaches and all the good things Europe has to offer. But we do have a very special guest today. We actually have a couple tuning in, but we've got one special guest who is going to be taking the stage. And my friend's Yella. If you don't know Yella, he's been with Startup Grind even longer than I have been, and truly is like a pillar in the organization. And he started out as a chapter director for the Amsterdam chapter, and then worked his way up into HQ, and now serves as partnership manager over at Startup Grind on the sales team. And Yella is going to be sharing some best practices on how to attract and sell sponsors for your chapter. So everyone, please give a very warm welcome to Yella. Standing ovation, friends.
Next time, Lynn, I would suggest a little bit more of an humbling introduction. It would be more than enough. But this definitely would be good ego, but I don't necessarily think it's Let me to share my screen with you as well, because I try to create a little bit of a presentation. I don't set the bar really high on your expectations, but just to kind of like guide along a little bit of the conversation as well. So let me kind of like figure that out in seconds. My computer is a little bit slow when I'm trying to stream here, so let's see. Yourselves. Let me know if they can see my screen. It seems like I can't see or hear.
It was there for it was there for a second and then it disappeared.
All right. I'm not on Google Chrome. That's probably a bad idea, is it?
Yes. And if it's not giving you access, just click that help button on the top right hand corner, and then it'll like troubleshoot the access for your screen, and then hopefully it'll let you.
Yeah, sorry everyone.
And if not, then maybe try you could always share the link with me to your presentation in Slack, and then I can share my screen and you can just talk. That's another option.
It's good. So
I think I will be fine. I just need to join in on the Google Chrome and then.
Okay, cool. While Yella gets that situated, if anyone has any questions right now about getting sponsorships or just wants to share any general challenges that you face, you know, and Yella can be sure to cover that. I'd love to just hear in the chat who here has gotten a sponsor in the past. Anyone?
So that's really where a lot of the demand for this.
Calvin, I feel like you've had to at least have a sponsor before. You too, Katie. No sponsors? Ever? Startup Grind history?
I think
we got one. So we had one for our second event.
Okay, nice.
Which was like, we hosted a local like food company, basically. Environment of like food from the government sponsored us, which was good. And then we've just in the process of hopefully getting some more sponsorship from the government. They're just a bit slow to pay, but hopefully soon.
Nice. Well, congratulations on that. All right, Yella, I can see your screen.
Yeah, well, that's a good start. Unfortunately, I won't be able to see your faces probably when I'm presenting, so I will just stop every once in a while and go to the Babbage page as well. But oh, wait 1 second, one more second. I might have solved it. 1 second.
Your microphone is like a bit echoey.
Yes. I can put on my headphones if you want.
Yeah, let's try that because there's definitely a strong echo.
I can hear someone talking in the background somewhere as well. But. Is this better?
There's still a bit of an echo. Try talking again.
Now it should be solved, right?
There's still an echo.
There's an echo? What?
Yeah.
Wait, I can try my Bluetooth headphones with a cable. Like, if that doesn't work.
This sounds so funny.
All right, does this work? Now I can't hear you. Correct. Oh, wait. Can you hear me now?
Still same with the echo.
Still.
Do you have like more browsers open? Might be the issue.
Oh, no, that's not the case. But can you hear me actually now, or not?
No, we can hear you, but we still have an echo on it. Would you maybe log out and then come back in?
Cool, yeah, I can
Close
try
all the
that.
browser. And then close all the browsers as well.
That is a great example of doing a test before having someone speak. So usually we would do that, but we haven't done it for today. So let's hope it's gonna work now.
How is the audio now? Is it still?
Yay!
I think it has to do with screen share. I have no clue why, but or is it
There's
just
still a little static on my end.
on my end as well? But like I literally never have this. Now I don't hear anything.
Now it's good.
Now it's
Yeah,
good.
now it's good at my end.
Yeah.
And now I
It's
static
like-
again.
Yeah. Let's go ahead. I think it's not that bad. It's
All right. Well, I'm sorry everyone for the hiccup. Like, given that it was Bevy, so I thought it would work out fine. But yeah, let me share my screen. Hopefully, my audio is still doing all right at the moment. It's relatively acceptable, and you can see my screen.
perfect.
All right.
Now the sound is good. It's super weird. Now it's good.
Maybe it's sneakily someone that's on mute, but yeah, thanks to the community team at Madeline. They have asked me to facilitate this presentation today on upskill your sales and sponsorship skills. I want to make it a little bit interactive, so if anyone has like questions in the meantime or whatever, definitely feel free to jump in, and we can answer them right on the spot. I'm by no means an expert on getting sponsorships for a chapter. I know it's like super difficult. I did have a lot of conversations with chapter directors during my time when I was a community manager in EMEA, and also had the lucky and fortunate situation that I've been to a couple of chapters that did have a lot of chapters, for example, or sponsors, for example, like G back in his day when he was a chapter director of Cape Town. Maybe you know him as well. So I'm just trying to take some of my learnings from my work at Startup Grind on getting sponsorship on an HQ level and try to just think of scenarios and how that could help you as well on the global level. But yeah, that's a little bit what I want to accomplish within this session today. So to give you a bit of a background, because I know I haven't shown my face in a while on this call, and probably also a lot of you have maybe not been at Global, so I have never really had the opportunity to meet you in person. So I have been with Startup Grind indeed for the last 3.5 years working for HQ. So starting out as the community manager for Europe, Middle East, and Africa. So this lovely bunch of people. And then after a year or so, I moved over to our sales team where I basically helped Carly and Lindsay back in the day, as well as Alex, really to kind of like set up great partnerships as well with other companies and really bring on board partners for our global and Europe conference as well. That's also what I'm still doing right now within the role as a partnerships manager. Besides Startup Grind, I'm an addicted windsurfer. So every time it's windy or there are nice waves, you will catch me outside. I am quite a terrible golfer, although I do love it. I spend a lot of time on it, but definitely wasn't born with the right gene for it. I do love cooking as well, mediocre chef. I love to do things above the grill, and in my free time, I love to chat about macroeconomics as well, and kind of like diving into that topic. So if anyone catches me at the next global conference or in-person event that we're doing, feel free to talk with me about any of these subjects. If you want to get in contact with me, email is probably by far the best. I'm not so active on social media and other platforms. You can find me there, but don't expect an answer. So I wanted to start off, and probably while I was figuring out all the technical solutions here, but just to kind of engage a little bit of the audience. So who of you currently have a sponsor or partner for their chapter? And the reason why I'm also saying it's a partner, because it can contribute a lot of value as well to your chapter. So if people can speak up and tell a little bit about maybe their latest or recent partnerships that they're having, would be amazing to hear. Yeah.
For us in Helsinki, we actually have shitloads of partners. So I wouldn't consider them as sponsors since they are not bringing in any money. but all of our events like food, drinks, our venue, sometimes like even goodie bags we give to all attendees. Those are all being sponsored by our partners. So basically, once we want to organize event, we reach out to them and they provide like literally everything. So in that sense, there has not been any serious need to get a sponsor because we don't even need the money. But I really want to move towards getting the money so we can actually have a budget and other plans. For example, going to global with some of my members. It would be nice if the chapter could cover those kind of stuff for the members. So yeah.
Yeah, definitely agree. Well, I mean, that's a great spot already to be, right? Where you have a lot of the partners that are basically paying for the event. I think that's even for some of the chapter directors something that they really would cherish and kind of like want to get towards. And I know that you cherish it as well. That's not what I'm saying, but that's definitely something that they want to be striving towards as well, because that's where a lot of the expenses can come in if you want to host like a virtual or an in-person and high-class event as well. Like the food and drinks is definitely something which is difficult to get as well. So I think that is really the number one step to first be looking at, and potentially from there, it's of course trying to kind of like monetize the situation as well. But it can be difficult, and what you described as well is basically what I want to get into next, because I think it is super important to define your goal, right? Like, why are you hosting your starter brand chapter? Is that for it to maybe like earn a little bit of money on the side? If that's the case, I always say like, don't do this as your hobby because or don't do this as a side hustle because you're spending way too much time on something that's probably never really going to give you a lot of results like on a monetary perspective. But I think you could indeed like make a little bit of money, which could pay for like the expenses such as going to a global conference and enjoying yourself there and maybe flying out the team. That's also definitely chapters have proven that in the past. For example, like the Scotland team has really managed to do that as well, but it's something difficult and it requires a lot of work as well. So I would always start by basically defining that goal, right? Like, why do you want to get sponsorship? Is it to improve the events that you're already hosting? Do you want to get more out of it? If it's money, maybe that should not really be the driving factor of the events that you're hosting. But I can definitely see the point as well, right? You're putting a lot of effort into it, so making a little bit of cash on the side for all those efforts and the good that you're doing to the ecosystem wouldn't harm anyone. So and that's also of course what I want to define, like go into a little bit more like today as well. But I think setting that for yourself and also being clear about that really helps a lot as well to convey that message to your potential sponsors as well, right? Because I'm pretty sure that a lot of the sponsorship that have, for example, come towards a team of Scotland, which managed to fly out the whole team to global, I think last year as well, is also because they share that with their sponsors. They say like, hey, we bring this all to you. Like, the money is not really wasted on us, like buying beers at the bar on the weekend or whatever, but we want to be flying this community to SG, like bring those learnings as well from the global community there and the other chapter directors and bring it back to the ecosystem here, right? Because a lot of the partners that maybe are willing to invest within your community are also a little bit doing it out of a feeling to support basically their local startup ecosystems as well, right? I think that's also when Katie is talking about maybe like getting government funding, that will be an important topic for them, right? So also, basically tell that as well towards the people that you want to be getting sponsorship from. So the number one step where I would start if I was in your shoes is, and I don't know why I call this map your inventory, but I think it's super important to know what you have, right? Like, at the end of the day, you're asking people for money, and a sponsorship is always a return of something, like whether that is like marketing exposure, whether that is lead generation, but people need to be able to calculate their ROI. That's the number one thing. We live in a society at the moment where everything is data driven, and also unlocking budgets for even chapters and maybe whether it's like $1,000 or like $500 a month, like it's not as easy anymore as it used to be, because people need to explain their boss as well as why they are spending that 500 quid each month on the starter brand event. What is their expectations? How can they justify that cost as well towards their boss? So therefore, you really need to know like questions like how large your community is, what the demographics of your community, and what valuable service can you offer them, right? I always say having their logo at your event is cool, but it's not really, it's not justifying a cost, for example, for $500 a month, right? So you need to figure out like how you can provide more value to these companies as well for them in order to really want to make that investment into your chapter as well. Like what can you offer them? What are some of the maybe startups that are walking around? Get some testimonials from these startups as well, why they are there every month. I think you really need to make sure that they get an understanding of who is at your events. Are these the people that they want to be targeting for their service or product that they're offering? And then you can have a discussion around whether they could be sponsoring. So that's also the second part, right? Like prospecting. And this is, it is such a like a boring word. I think it's the number one thing that you can do in order to find the right people towards your event. And basically all of you are probably already doing this, because I'm pretty sure that most of you are reaching out on like Twitter and LinkedIn to promote your events to people that think will be a good fit, right? Because you want to have attendees there for like a great speaker that you managed to arrange. So you try to hustle some attendees, but for sponsor, it's basically the same, right? Like the number one question that you should ask is, what are the services and services and products that your community could really benefit from? At what stage are they? Because I know all of your communities in itself are unique as well, right? Like we can't compare a San Francisco chapter or even an Helsinki chapter, not in volume sizes, not in culture, not in the people that we're seeing there, and probably also not even from expectations from a sponsor perspective. So you really need to know in the prospecting phase is like, how would an ideal sponsor look like? Personally, I would start with regulars at your event. They know the value that you bring to the table as a chapter director. They also know the value of the event in itself. So that's really a great place to start. And maybe you can have that discussion with them and ask them like, hey, what do they need to see basically from this event in order to be willing to make an investment in the form of a sponsorship? Like, how would they calculate the ROI? How can they tap in? How are they currently tapping into the startup community as well? That's a number one. That's really a question that I'm using a lot as well when having conversation about getting sponsorship for the Europe and Global Conference as well. It's like, what is kind of like the key market that you want to tap into if you are investing in the early stage tech startup ecosystem, from bootstrap up to Series A, what Startup Grind is mostly known for. Like, how are you currently attacking that market, and what are some of the activities that have worked really well for you? This is all the prospecting phase, because at the end of the day, you need to sell a sponsorship to a person for who it's gonna make a difference, or to someone that wants to be investing within this community. So you need to qualify them that they are a good subject. You're not gonna sell a Ferrari to someone that is looking to get like a Fiat Punto, right? So that's also the similar approach happening here as well within the prospecting phase. Does anyone have a question around like prospecting or topics that we have spoken about earlier? I hope you guys still hear me. All good so far. All right. Well, as I mentioned, definitely interrupt me, right? But I think prospecting is the number one thing where it starts. So start local, and I think I have some examples as well. So well-funded Series A and to roughly like Series C startups. I think that's a super interesting market. What you see mostly is that early stage well-funded startups, they always need to get a lot of early base customers that are using their products. It's mostly still a little bit of a flawed product, so they don't want to go up market yet. So they are typically focusing on anything between like 1 to 100 employee sizes in company. And I think that really is an interesting one. So if you have startups within, just keeping using Kelvin as an example, given that he is so active in the chat as well. Like if he had like well-funded Series A startups, or even like well-funded startups in general that are within the ecosystem at the moment, I think that could be a really interesting case. First of all, that would also be a great fit from your event perspective, right? Because you can really give them, for example, a podium. It would be great to interview them. So it's not necessarily really pay to play. So you also have an opportunity that you really want to be working with the brand. Another one that I find interesting, it's also a super difficult one because you need to really believe in these people. But a development agency, a lot of the people that we see at Startup Grind are either maybe early stage entrepreneurs. They maybe still need to build like the MVP or the product. So they're really at the stage where they could use maybe a development agency. I know that a lot of people say like, yeah, you shouldn't use development agencies for building your startup, but the reality of it happens a lot. So you might as well have them as a sponsor. One thing that probably has supported the most Startup Grind chapters throughout is law firms. So a lot of local law firms are making good money off founders, and I think that's really a niche that we see a lot of sponsoring events. I think that the London chapter at the moment has a law firm as a sponsor, and I think that also the Cape Town chapter used to have that as well. We had CMS as a global sponsor as well for like a bunch of like 20 chapters or 10 chapters over the years. So law firms is definitely something interesting, and similar for accountancy as well. That are definitely companies that are willing to invest in a little bit more of a niche event or a niche community, because that's directly where their clients are. So don't look at the big firms always, like also look at the small guys that are specializing in the startup industry. Co-working spaces, I put it in there, but it's more or less, I think most of the time they probably end up being a partner. But if you do a really good job, they might actually pay you a little bit of money, given that you fill out the space with a great event every time. Similar for VCs, sometimes VCs out of goodwill and that they wanting to support the ecosystem could also be a sponsor for your event. That is some of the examples I would give for chapter sponsorship. There are probably a lot of others as well, but this is the categories where I would be searching in. So yeah, how to best set up yourself up for success? Well, yeah, I'm not saying that I had a lot of success getting sponsorship as a chapter director, right? So that I also don't want to make it seem that I know it all, but I think the learnings that I have had from selling sponsorship for global and Europe as well is your number one goal should be to learn everything about their objectives. So if you found a good prospect, like learn why they are investing in this market and what their objectives are. And I always ask them this question is, what do you need to see in order to, for example, to call a sponsorship at an event like this a success? Like they don't necessarily have to be a sponsor already, but you want to know how success would look like for them and also for their boss, preferably. Because if your contact person is happy and he is getting a lot of leads from the work that you're doing or a lot of exposure, and you're hitting those metrics beforehand, you already know you're going to be having a different conversation once you may be renegotiating or trying to really get them on board for a longer-term partnership as well. So asking those questions in advance, I think, is of number one essence, and that's something that everyone should be doing. So I tried to put here some questions that could be helpful. So as mentioned earlier, ask the question how they currently approach this market. What are some of the activities that have been working well for them and that they have done in the past? And also ask them how they would describe success for an X number amount of investment within this community. Then, once again, this is all stuff that probably you have heard 1,000 times as well, but aim to start small with a clear defined goal and success metrics. So literally, even with the sponsorships that we sell at Global, which starts from like mostly like from 10 to like a 50 or even 100K, the majority of partners always opt in for the smallest package first. They want to start small. They want to see how this community is returning. If they're actually getting the right amount of prospects, if they see a lot of value in it, if they like working with you, also a super, super big factor. So I would just aim for that for the get-go. Like, tell them, like, hey, let's start with a small sponsorship. Let's clearly define metrics together. And if we are hitting those, let's sit around the table and see how we can enlarge this partnership, because that's what they want as well. They want to trial and test. They always want to dip their toe in the waters first. So that's just something that you should be looking at. And then you could already start with painting the picture a little bit and saying, like, hey, if it's a success, we can also look at X, Y, and Z. But they will be so much more comfortable on their end to just say, like, hey, let's just kick it off small. But for something that you have to keep in mind as well, because that's also a mistake that I've been making, is when onboarding partners and you're going too small and you have, for example, a limited time frame. So for example, say like 3 months, it sometimes can be really, really hard to actually deliver value to them within that period of time. So I would really suggest still start small, but give yourself enough time to at least drive success for the partnerships as well. And then over time, make sure that you really like gather testimonials from your community, like your partners, also your sponsors. That's just something that that's gonna be helping you, because they're gonna ask for validation on what other partners have seen. Putting a similar amount on the table. So they probably want to know how they can get that success as well. And of course, it's always the chicken and the egg story. Like you can't really give them results and data if you haven't done it before yet. Just be upfront with it as well. Like, that's just what I will be doing. Like, say this is a new format, let's try success together. Okay, all right, next slide. So the value of being a chapter director. So you can explain this better to me than I to you, because I'm not a chapter director at the moment. But the value of being a chapter director, I would say that you are the gateway to your local startup community. At least that's the ambition that a lot of you have. And I think also a lot of you potentially are in the midst of becoming or are actively working towards with your chapter. But that's really, you're one of the gatekeepers. That's how sponsors should see you. And that's also the reason why they should be wanting to work with you. So if you finally get a sponsor on board, you really should be serving for them as a spokesperson for this partner. So it is, as I mentioned, it's not enough to chuck their logo in your newsletters and your emails. Like you really need to create a podium for them. You know, you need to make sure that they are a valued member of your community as well. Like, make sure you facilitate introductions for them. Give them a little love on stage. Give them a couple of minutes to talk about their business or whatever, where people can find them. If it makes sense, host a cool event with them where they can sit maybe in a panel, or don't necessarily give dedicate a whole fireside chat towards them, but get creative in how you can give them really some love as well, and that it's something that's reoccurring within the community. I think that a lot of the stuff that G used to do within that's something that he did super well, right? He gave, for example, the sponsors like a little bit of a minute in the beginning, maybe even a table at the networking area. And you don't have to close deals for them, but you are there to give them the best opportunity possible to generate leads from the community. And then in the midst of that, I think the number one key is like track the data and over communicate. Like you can't communicate enough with these partners. They have been spending money with you. They have some expectations there. If you can show them with the data that you have been delivering like 5 or 6 introductions over the course of like 3 months or 5 months, ask them like, hey, how's it going with X, Y, and Z? Did any business result from that introduction or whatever? That's the only real way that you can showcase your value. So that's something that you should always be on top of. It is not easy, but yeah, that's definitely something that you need to be doing. Otherwise, imagine that your point of contact leaves the company. And he has been handling all your goodwill in terms with that company, and has been managing your relationship and the sponsorship as well. And if you then And if he leaves, you're starting from scratch. But if you have that data of like what you have delivered over the last year or 6 months, you can easily have that conversation where you say like, hey, with Herman, we had this agreement, we delivered X, Y, and Z over the period of time. I would love to figure out if it also works within your strategy for the upcoming year. So yeah, those are some of the stuff that I will be doing. So just, I think I have one last kind of like summary of what I've been rambling on about. It's define your goal, map out your inventory, so know what you have to offer, know how your community look likes, find the right prospects. Like, don't just try to sell this to anyone. It's not going to work. It's a waste of time. Really try to find someone that wants to invest within this community, has something to gain from it as well, could sell his product or service to people that you have. Then start small with defined success metrics and over communicate that to them, and then actively drive the partnership as well. It's not going to be a success if you just put them and give them a little bit of exposure. So that will be my 2 cents. I know it ain't, it's not giving you the key to instantly getting a sponsor, but I think that's just the things that come on top of mind when you ask me about like getting a sponsorship. These are the things that are the most important to me. So questions?
I have 3 questions, but I can start with one and I'll give other people a chance to ask. So if anybody doesn't ask any question, I'll just keep asking. Okay. But yeah, that was a good presentation. Thank you so much for sharing all of those details with us. One of the first question I have is how can you convert a partner to a sponsor? Like, is it normal? Do you have maybe some, I don't know, some case practice around this? Because we have a very big partner. Actually, it's Spaces. So they've been giving us, their event space. Sometimes they provide us with like goodie bags and some snacks and all those kind of stuff. I know that they have a lot of money to spend, but they are currently a partner. So I'm thinking, what are those tips? How can I easily, move the conversation from you're just a partner and we exchange value to, maybe giving us some sort of, I don't know, the monthly budget kind of thing, or maybe a yearly kind of budget, and we can just upgrade them to sponsors.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that's a super difficult conversation, right? Especially like you definitely picked the hardest one with the Spaces, because they're already providing so much value, and they will always refer back to you where they say like, yeah, but normally the event space is like $50,000 per event, and you're like, there, I know, but you're giving me it for free. So like we are almost in a different conversation. But I think with that, what I would take in mind is, for a company like Spaces, at the end of the day, they also want to have like a foot traffic over the floor of people. They want to have events, because that's also a key add towards their like space as well, right? Like, you're basically bringing value to the space because people can come along, they can see your event. It is a valuable event because you're hosting it for the key audience that is there. So I will be like, with that conversation, I think it's hard, but I will be really careful to not burn the bridge. But it is something that you could try, where you say like, hey, we got a couple of offers from other like events spaces where we could be hosting. Like, I really want to host it here. But I think, given that we also bring a lot of value to the space, would there be an opportunity to maybe tie also a little bit of monetary funds to it? But I wouldn't ask for too much there, because it's really, they do provide with a lot of value, and like things as like food and space is expensive if you really have to replace it. So definitely don't burn that bridge. So I would personally look for money somewhere else and just keep that relationship as it is. But that's how I would attack it. But by no means say that that's the best approach. But in order to get money from that specific relationship, you need to have leverage. Otherwise, there's no way you're gonna get it.
Okay, I'll try to create the leverage then. But thanks for the tips. It helps. That actually brings me to a second question about pricing. How do you price this sponsorship? Is it like one price fits all, or does it make sense to modify the price depending on the size of the company, depending on how much you feel they can bring to the table, and how much in general in terms of rate would be ideal for partnerships?
Yeah, that's a difficult question because I don't think it's a one-size-fits-all approach with all of your communities. I think it also relatively have to be priced at what is bringing, right? Like we are also, for example, not pricing exactly the same. Well, we kind of did what we did in the past, but for example, like a Europe conference that we're doing in London which has 5,000 people attendees normally, or something around that we're striving, and a global conference has a lot more attendees. Like we can price more for it because the opportunity is bigger, right? I think that's also where you have to be realistic with how large your impact is within the startup ecosystem of Helsinki, and also like how large of a pool of people that you're tapping into. Like if that's 200 people and there is no key prospect for them within your community, in essence, like what's the value from them to really be investing in it, right? So the pricing should maybe be different because you are not necessarily really have that much to offer towards them. So I think you better know in terms of like pricing really what you can ask. Like I think it shouldn't really be a lot more than a couple of €100, for example, per like event, right? That you're asking for a partner. But you also need to be realistic. Like what? Ask them the question, like what is your cost per acquisition or cost per lead that they are working with? A lot of partners will tell you that their cost per lead is maybe around like 50 or like a $30. So then you know if you bring them a lead, that's basically the value that they are willing to pay for it. So if you can bring them 50 leads over the course of the partnership that you're doing with them, you can basically multiply that by their cost per. Should be almost around the number that the sponsorship is, right? Because then they would be a happy customer, because that's the amount that they're willing to spend on it, and everything that you bring them beyond that is just a bonus. So yeah. Any other questions? I know otherwise, Kelvin, you have another one, so you may continue, but just checking with other people if there are questions.
It's the time now. If you have any sponsor or sale related questions, you have the pro here. Let me go through the chat. I think I haven't seen any questions.
Maybe you have like a story or something like you could share of just like how you were able to close a sponsor or transform a sponsor or a partner to a sponsor, or any fun stories come to mind?
Any fun stories come to mind? Well, you know what I always used to do, and a partner that I'm still pretty proud of, and I think it's also relevant because they just raised 150 million today. It's remote.com, which is founded by like a Dutch entrepreneur as well. They just started 2.5 years ago, but I first started contacting them roughly 1.5 years ago when they were less than a 1-year-old company. And the reason for it, because I really knew their use case well as a company, and I saw that there were like great investors behind it and good growth. So I just kind of like kept the conversation alive with them. It didn't work out, the 3 or 4 proposals that I've sent to them. And then all of a sudden, the 4th time, like they signed even without having one phone call about the Europe or the global conference. So it can go so weird in sales where. And that similar case was with Webflow as well. So I sold Webflow for the last global conference without a single call. And literally what I first did, I invited them to the global conference the year beforehand. Then afterwards, they didn't reply to my email. I saw that they attended the global conference. So I basically emailed the person that attended the global conference and said like, hey, saw you been there. How was your experience? And she ended up being the event marketing manager for Webflow. And then afterwards, she signed for the global conference without a call as well. they haven't signed on yet for Europe because their strategy is changing. So that's also the thing, right? Like you never really know. Like Webflow was willing to invest in it in the global conference, but right now they are rediscussing their event strategy as well. So it's not that you're always wrong or right. It has to fit within their objectives as well of what they want to be achieving and where they want to be spending their marketing dollars as well. And yeah, to be honest, like events and especially virtual events are just a hard thing to sell because it requires their time as well. Like if your partner wants to be successful at your events, they need to send a representative. Like that's just how it is. Like you can't be doing their work for them. And that's also something that you have to make clear with them, right? Like it's not gonna land on their lap that they spent, hey, here you spend $500 each month with you, and why haven't you send me a single lead? Like, of course, there is work for you to be done there, but there is also time and effort that they need to spend. Like, I have an example from the global conference. We had two similar companies there. It was F15 or F515 or something like that, and Lever. They are like a similar company, like Greenhouse Software. I think it's like for onboarding and hiring people. So they both were at the global conference, the last one, I think it was the last one that we did in person. One team had an amazing experience. One team that was so unsatisfied that they left. I think the last day of the conference they weren't even there. You know what the difference was? Like one team had a sales rep there that was going to every single startup booth that we had at the conference, which are 300, managed to get a whole lot of leads, and we're a happy sponsor. The other person was there by herself, was late, like on the first day, didn't prepare anything, and eventually didn't have any leads and didn't have anything to show her. So her boss was mad at her for not valuing the event in the correct way. But at the end of the day, it was also partly due to her not putting in the effort. So I think that's also something that has to be clear with your partners. Is you need to do the work in order to see results within this community. I can do a lot of effort for you, like facilitating introductions, give you some stage time, helping you to connect with people, because for some people that's also difficult, right? But therefore you need to know your community and also know who to kind of like connect with one another. But yeah, that's just rambling on.
Awesome. Well, great examples. And thank you so much for being here today. Really appreciate it. I know I got some pearls of wisdom that I can apply to my chapter. And it looks like everyone else did too. Let's see. Steve has a question about global partners that we refer to you. Steve, what exactly is your question on that?
Yeah, no, like Steve has referred to me, I think a couple of, or at least one that I can recall as well, a global partner that we're trialing out or want to bring on board for the global conference. Steve has, as far as I recall, like, I don't think that conversation really worked out with the partner that I have in mind. But yeah, that's the last thing where it left on my end. But happy to check that.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for sharing, Yella. Really appreciate it. We've only got like 2 minutes left, so I do want to be respectful of anyone's time if you do have to go. I did just want to share like one little story for us in Chicago and how we approach sponsorship in like a unique way, because I thought that this was just something very different. But Indeed.com, they're like a hiring website, and they were rolling out like a new product that was for more like C-level suite or something like that. So our audience member of like early stage startups wasn't necessarily like their key target of customer. However, it was like the level that we were bringing speakers at that were, you know, more successful entrepreneurs. They already have, you know, money in the bank, and are scaling and growing their startups. And so it was really unique because, and shout out to Tom for coming up with this, but he connected with the, you know, Indeed rep and was like, well, how about we do a speaker lunch, and it won't be salesy at all, but you get to connect with some of these past entrepreneurs that we've invited on like the Startup Grind Chicago stage, and you can start building a relationship, and you cover lunch, you cover, you know, the sponsorship, we'll handle the invites, the reservation, all that good stuff. And I want to say that like Tom sold it for like $1,000 plus lunch at like a nice restaurant. And we invited about, 5 to 7 other previous speakers, entrepreneurs that were kind of like in the same stages of success in building their business. And that was a different type of Startup Grind Chicago event because it was invite only and it was with the speakers. But that ended up having incredible results. Not only did all of the speakers like say thank you to us because they found value out of it because they got to connect with other entrepreneurs on their level within the ecosystem that were doing really cool things. But then it was just a great opportunity for the rep at Indeed to, begin building a relationship with these different key people. And we really focus on the fact like this is just a way for you to get to meet these people. This is not by any means like a sales demo where you're going to be like showing off the product at lunch. And so that ended up working out really well, and something that we wanted to start just doing moving forward is like twice a year do like a speaker sponsored lunch where we got to bring in, previous speakers and entrepreneurs, and then kind of like pair them with our sponsors. So there's tons of like unique ways that you can collaborate and work with different partners and sponsors. So just, stay open to those ideas. And that is it from me.
That's amazing. We also did that party with Indeed here in Amsterdam. It was so cool. It's
they're really fun.
They are for sure fun. But I think that's like one last thing on that as well, right? I think a lot of these companies, and maybe specifically government agencies or people that don't necessarily really have a startup product as of yet, or they want to be engaged with their communities, I think they also really want to look at you guys as a chapter director to help shape a little bit their strategy, right? You can almost serve a bit of a consultant as well, and that could also be just something of the value that you bring to this table within these relationships as well. So I think we always need to find ways to bring the value without just the general branding aspects, because that's just not enough for a lot of these partners. So yeah, use really your intel and your knowledge of your local startup ecosystems to kind of like get these deals over the line, but also say that within this proposal, like, hey, happy to also collaborate with your team on like a strategy session or whatever, because then you almost become a consultant for their startup team, right? That they want to be approaching. And I think that's where a lot of the value is. And then you can maybe also charge more for your partnerships.
Awesome. Love it. Thank you so much, Yella. Really appreciate it. Also, thank you everyone for taking the time out of your busy summer schedule to be with us today. Really appreciate it. It's great to see some of your faces. Well, I know all of you guys have your cameras turned off now, but would love to do just like a final picture. If you guys want to turn on your cameras real quick. Thank you so much for joining. Oh, there's Steve. Let's see. Can we get Noreen? There's Larix, Monde, Muhammad. One. Just wait on 2 more, 3 more. All right, guys. On the count of 3, let's say Startup Grind. Woo. Awesome. Perfect. Well, thank you guys so much for tuning in today. Really appreciate it. We will, if you, I forget what I was going to say, but thank you all so much for joining us today and have a great rest of your day. Thanks for tuning in.
Thanks for joining.
Thanks, guys. Bye-bye.
Bye, everyone. Great to see you.
Bye.
Bye.